On May 11, 1889, cotton broker James Maybrick died under mysterious circumstances, his body revealing faint arsenic traces, while his young American wife stood at the center of a moral and forensic storm. The ensuing trial would become Victorian Britain's most sensational murder case, mixing patent medicine arsenic, fractured Victorian mores, and disputed scientific testimony. Background and marriage. Florence Elizabeth Chandler was the daughter of a prominent mobile banker and met James Maybrick aboard ship in 1880 when she was just 17 and he 23 years her senior. Despite social gossip, they wed at St. James's Church, Piccadilly, on July 27, 1008. 181, then settled into Aigburth's upscale Battlecrease house. In Liverpool society, they dazzled at balls and charitable events, though James's hypochondria drove him to take patent medicines laced with arsenic, laudanum, and strychnine, while Florence grew increasingly restless, confiding in lovers such as Alfred Brierly. By 1889, marital tensions peaked. Florence's intercepted letter to Brierly inflamed the household, and Michael Maybrick, James's brother, ordered her confined to house arrest on suspicion of impropriety. Florence later testified that James himself begged her to administer arsenic-tinctured Valentine's meat juice as a tonic, though he never drank it. The fatal illness and suspicion. On April 27, 1889, James Maybrick, a Liverpool cotton merchant, fell gravely ill after reportedly ingesting a double dose of his usual strychnine-laced tonic. His condition deteriorated rapidly, exhibiting symptoms consistent with arsenic poisoning. Despite medical attention, he succumbed on May 11. A subsequent inquest revealed arsenic traces in his system, prompting authorities to scrutinize Florence's actions. Notably, Nurse Gore recounted an incident where Florence took a bottle of Valentine's meat juice into her room, emerging later and placing it by James's bedside. Tests later confirmed the presence of half a grain of arsenic in that bottle. Florence's purchase of flypapers, commonly used to extract arsenic for cosmetic purposes, further fueled suspicions. On May 14, while still bedridden, Florence was arrested and charged with her husband's murder. Superintendent Brining read her the charge. "Mrs. Maybrick, you are in custody on suspicion of causing the death of your late husband, James Maybrick, on the 11th instant." She later swore to her mother, "They all believe me guilty, but I swear to you, I am innocent." The case against Florence was largely circumstantial, relying on her possession of arsenic-laden items and her extramarital affair. However, the forensic evidence was contentious. The Marsh test, employed to detect arsenic, indicated its presence in James's organs, but the levels were arguably too low to be fatal. Defense experts posited that James's habitual consumption of arsenic could account for these traces. Moreover, the prosecution's reliance on character assassination, emphasizing Florence's infidelity and moral shortcomings, overshadowed the scientific ambiguities. The defense contended that the evidence was circumstantial, lacking definitive proof of Florence's intent or action to poison her husband. Arrest, autopsy, and forensic dispute. The investigation unveiled a trove of arsenic-laden items within Battlecrease house, including bottles, handkerchiefs, and a sealed packet labeled arsenic poison for cats. Analysts estimated the quantity sufficient to kill over 50 individuals. However, the forensic evidence was contentious. The Marsh test, employed to detect arsenic, indicated its presence in James's organs, but the levels were arguably too low to be fatal. Defense experts posited that James's habitual consumption of arsenic could account for these traces. Moreover, the prosecution's reliance on character assassination, emphasizing Florence's infidelity and moral shortcomings, overshadowed the scientific ambiguities. The defense contended that the evidence was circumstantial, lacking definitive proof of Florence's intent or action to poison her husband. The Liverpool trial. Florence's trial commenced on July 31, 1889, at St. George's Hall, Liverpool, presided over by Mr. Justice Fitzjames Stephen. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, drawing immense public interest. The prosecution painted Florence as a manipulative adulteress, motivated by her affair and potential financial gain. They highlighted her purchase of flypapers and the arsenic-laced meat juice as evidence of premeditation. The defense, led by Sir Charles Russell, countered by emphasizing James's own arsenic use and the lack of concrete evidence linking Florence to the administration of a lethal dose. Despite the defense's efforts, the all-male jury, influenced by prevailing Victorian attitudes towards female morality, found Florence guilty. She was sentenced to death, a verdict that sparked public outrage. The Illustrated Police News reported that the crowd outside the court cheered for Florence and jeered at the judge and jury, reflecting widespread belief in her innocence. Imprisonment and memoirs. Following a massive public outcry, Home Secretary Henry Matthews commuted Florence's death sentence to life imprisonment, citing insufficient evidence of a fatal dose. Florence endured over 14 years in various prisons, including Woking and Aylesbury. In her memoir, My 15 Lost Years, she detailed the harrowing conditions: unheated cells where water froze overnight, grueling labor washing hundreds of dinner tins daily, and the psychological toll of constant surveillance. She described the isolation and despair, stating, "I was too overwhelmed for either analytic or collective thought." Despite these hardships, Florence maintained her innocence, drawing support from figures like Lord Russell of Killowen and American sympathizers. Released in 1904, she returned to the United States, living under her maiden name and advocating for prison reform until her death in 1941. Aftermath and ongoing debate. The Florence Maybrick case remains one of the most debated legal controversies of the Victorian era. Critics argue that her conviction was more a reflection of societal prejudices than concrete evidence. The reliance on character judgment, particularly focusing on her infidelity, overshadowed the ambiguous forensic findings. Modern analyses suggest that James's own arsenic consumption could have led to his demise, independent of any external administration. Furthermore, the all-male jury's potential bias against a woman perceived as morally compromised raises questions about the fairness of the trial. The case has since been cited in discussions about the necessity of female jurors and the dangers of moralistic judgments in legal proceedings. Did Florence Maybrick truly poison her husband in cold blood, or was she a scapegoat for Victorian moral hysteria and flawed forensic science? This question, echoing through gaslit courtrooms and dusty jail cells, challenges us to weigh the fragile balance between justice, gender, and the reliability of science in an era when arsenic glittered as both beauty aid and deadly weapon